Hi everybody, this is Dr. Frankie. This is currently for me the week before school starts, and I'm trying to get all of my preparations ready because next week, which is now for you, I am in Chile presenting at the 16th World Conference on Earthquake Engineering. This is a really important and prestigious conference that happens once every about 6 years or so, and I've been invited to be a speaker at it this year. So this entire first week of school, I am out, but I have prepared ahead of time these lectures for you and uploaded them to a YouTube channel, so hopefully you can go back and watch those as much as you'd like. And I'm experimenting a little bit with this flipped classroom format, and so I think these videos will give me a little opportunity to see how this works and to get some feedback from you on whether this is an effective learning experience for you. A couple of things that I want to go over before we hop into today's introductory lecture for the topic. I'm going to pull up a whiteboard here. Excuse me. One of the things I like about this format of making these videos, this is CEEN 545. It's formally called Geotechnical Analysis of Earthquake Phenomenon or something like that. The title was made before I came to BYU, and I absolutely can't stand it. But it's really a pain to change a title of a course, and so I just keep it. Really, the name of this course should be Geotechnical Earthquake Engineering. It's a class where we're going to evaluate earthquake hazards, including ground motions, ground deformations, and how they impact the soil and the ground, which in turn can impact structures and things built on top of the soil and things built in the soil. So this is traditionally a very popular class. Students seem to like it, but there's a few things you need to know before you just dive right in. The first thing I want you to know is that BYU is really well known for its contributions to geotechnical earthquake engineering. If I could spell. So this goes all the way back to Professor Youd and then Professor Rollins, and I'm now beginning to contribute. We have a very established program, and even though there's only a couple of us who are researching in this area, we always seem to do some really big and impactful things. So a lot of the papers, a lot of the things you'll read about on this subject area, they initiated right here at BYU. And because of this, it's important for you to know that we have, in essence, a reputation to keep. We produce some of the highest quality graduate students in the area of geotechnical earthquake engineering. Our students are recruited to some of the highest research institutions for PhDs. They're highly recruited for industry to go work for some of the top consultants and contractors who deal with these issues throughout the country, if not the world. And so this class is very important for that. And it's important that you understand that because it's going to make some of what else I'm going to say make a little more sense. The next thing I want you to understand is that this class is not easy. This class is hard. It's hard for a few reasons. One, we do lots of probability and statistics, which I know for some of you is an alarming thing. Statistics and probability are forms of mathematics that for whatever reason, a lot of engineers, and particularly civil engineers, avoid like the plague, and they have traditionally. But they shouldn't. In fact, there have been some surveys that have gone out recently to engineers in practice throughout the world, and they've asked, if we were to focus on one type of mathematics to teach in high school, what should it be? Algebra? Should it be calculus? Should it be geometry, trig? What should it be? And the one type of math that the majority of engineers and folks out practicing in the real world keep saying is it should be statistics, because that's the type of math that really has the highest application and most real world uses of any form of mathematics. And so anytime you deal with anything that is uncertain or has a lot of unknowns associated with it, statistics and probability are going to be used. Earthquake prediction, earthquake hazards are no exception. And so we're going to do a lot of statistics in this class. Another thing that makes this class hard is that we have some very challenging assignments. So traditionally in this class, because this is a 500 level class, I do have a lot of senior students who choose to take this class, and that's fine. I love my seniors and they're welcome to take this class, but they've traditionally struggled a little bit because they're still kind of in the monkey see, monkey do mindset, which is they want to see lots of example problems. They want to see things worked out in every little incremental step, and then they want to copy those steps step by step. And we're not going to roll that way in this class. Instead, we're going to practice a higher form of learning, which involves you struggling a little bit. But when you struggle a little bit, guess what? The science has shown and has actually proven that you retain more information and you are more capable of applying it in different situations. So that's going to be the approach that we're going to take. I will have some examples here and there, but for the most part, on our homework assignments, there is going to be a little bit of struggle for you. And I do that on purpose, not to be mean, but it's the most effective way to make you practical users and masters of what we're going to learn in this class. Another thing that makes this class hard is that we have lots, and when I say lots, I mean lots of reading. Now I know that a lot of you are probably in the mindset that reading is optional unless there's some form of quiz or something that's in class. I don't roll that way. I don't like to offer quizzes to try to incentivize my students to learn. Instead, I want to provide the material and allow you to use your agency whether or not you want to learn. But I want to help you understand one thing, that when you get out in your career, the main mode or main method of learning a new skill or new material is reading the journal article, particularly in this area of geotechnical earthquake engineering. That's how, in practice, we always learn the new models, the new approaches, the new applications, and I want you guys to pick up those skills in this class. So every week we have lots of reading. Now we're going to be reading from the Kramer textbook, the Geotechnical Earthquake Engineering textbook. Professor Steve Kramer's at the University of Washington. He was my master's degree advisor, and he remains a good friend and collaborator to this day. But there's going to be also lots of other journal articles, reports that I'm going to provide to you. And I'm going to ask that you take some time and try to read through these things. This is not easy reading, folks. A lot of this stuff is hard because it has a lot of what we talked about, probability and statistics in it, and it's going to take a while for you to get through it and to try to read it and understand it. But I want to challenge you to give it your best shot. I know time is an essence here, and a lot of you are just here to play the game and try to maximize your grade output for the minimal amount of work. I get it. I played the game myself, but I want to challenge you to stretch yourself and to try to practice lifelong learning skills by reading these papers and learning the material from the sources themselves. A couple other things I want to discuss about the class. You need to read the syllabus. Please read the syllabus. It's posted on Learning Suite. It's going to have all the rules in the class, the expectations. I have the whole class outlined and the schedules up there so you can see what we have coming down the pipeline. So make sure that you read that. As part of that, we generally are going to have one homework assignment per week, and those are generally going to be due on Fridays. Sometimes, though, we're going to have a 2-week stretch where we'll just have one assignment due if the assignment is particularly challenging, or we have at least one instance this semester where the schedules just don't line up, and so you kind of have a week off from homework. I encourage you to use your time wisely, and if you find yourself in a week where you're feeling light, go ahead and blaze ahead and try to get a head start on the next homework assignment so that you don't get smashed and get up against a deadline. These homework assignments, like I said, are going to stretch you and are going to challenge you. I encourage you guys to try to work in groups. Not necessarily to copy each other's work, but what I've found is that group work allows you to share your insights and the things that you learn, and it will make your learning more efficient and more enjoyable. So if you do your homework in groups, make sure that you do your own individual work, but you can all work on the same problems together. Also, try not to fall behind. If you fall behind in this course, you're going to get buried in a hurry. And so I just encourage you to stay current, stay up to schedule, and you should be fine. Like some of you have had in my previous classes, I'm a big fan of talking about things that matter most, including my 4L for You sessions. 4L stands for Live to Love, Love to Live. But because this is a graduate level class, I don't pre-plan all of my 4L sessions. Instead, I want to focus on topics that are important to you. So I'm going to ask right ahead of time to please send me some topics that have been on your mind. Topics that are concerning to you or things that may be stressing you this semester or this past year. And these are topics that I'll consider and give some thought and research and prayer to, and perhaps give a little discussion or talk on one of our 4L for You days. I'll do them usually every Friday when I'm in class, and we'll take the first 5 to 8 minutes of class and do those. I know that they're important to you, and they're certainly important to me. So again, please send me some topics. You can email those to me or send me a message through Learning Suite. The last thing that I want to just make you aware of, like this week, I have lots of travel this semester. My research is beginning to take off, and I'm having to travel around, make lots of presentations, lectures, and collaborations with some other folks. All those things are scheduled already this semester, and I'm going to post on Learning Suite the days when I'm scheduled to travel. And there's not a few of those days. I have several days where I'll be out of town, but on those days I will have lectures like this provided for you that you can watch on YouTube. And then I encourage you to go to class during the regularly scheduled time. My TA for this class is Alex Korob. He's going to be available during the regularly scheduled time to answer your questions, to clarify anything that may be fuzzy to you. And he'll be happy to do that. He's located in the soils lab. That's where his desk is. So just go in that little office in the soils lab, and you'll be able to find him if you need some help. Or his contact information will be on the Learning Suite website. So that's all I wanted to cover, at least as far as the business goes. We can get into the material today. And when we talk about geotechnical earthquake engineering, there's a few things that are important for us to consider before we get into nitty-gritty technical details. The first thing to consider is even though earthquakes may seem kind of like a boogeyman that have been around just for a couple of decades or so, that in reality that's not true. Earthquakes have been around ever since the earth has been around because earthquakes are caused by fundamental mechanisms that occur in the earth. And so, as long as humans have been recording history, earthquakes have been a part of them. For instance, this image here was recorded in ancient Japanese literature from I want to say the 1700s. And so, and as you can guess, that's a giant wave, which is a record of a giant tsunami that came and hit Japan in the year 1700. And it's one of the evidences that we have today of the Cascadia subduction zone. That's a type of fault that we'll discuss later on. That's near the states of Oregon and Washington. And we believe that this is the evidence that that fault ruptured and produced a giant wave that transversed the Pacific Ocean and slammed in Japan in the month of January of that year. Now, because this is BYU, I can talk to you about things that are important to me, which include revealed knowledge from the Lord regarding earthquakes. Earthquakes are mentioned a lot in Scripture, everything from the New Testament to the Doctrine and Covenants. And if you do just a simple search of the term earthquake or earthquakes on your smartphone, you're going to find that those words are used at least 26 other times in the standard works. In the Old Testament, the Book of Mormon, and those types of books. And so earthquakes have always been a part of the Lord's interactions with his children on this earth. From modern revelation, we've seen some interesting quotes from general authorities in recent years. For instance, Elder Dallin H. Oaks said in General Conference in 2004 that the list of major earthquakes in the World Almanac and the Book of Facts shows twice as many earthquakes in the decades of the 1980s and 1990s as in the two preceding decades. And it also shows further sharp increases in the first several years of this century. The list of notable floods and tidal waves worldwide shows similar increases in recent years. Increases by comparison with 50 years ago can be dismissed as changes in reporting criteria, but the accelerating pattern of natural disasters in the last few decades is ominous. I know that there would be some critics who would say to Elder Oaks that the reason there appears to be more earthquakes in recent decades is because we have more instruments that are capable of recording or capturing them. There may be some truth to that, but I can testify to you that at least in my professional lifetime, it seems like the number of earthquakes is indeed accelerating, as well as their effects and impacts on man. Just in the last 5 years alone, there have been some of the most significant earthquake events known to man to occur, and I think it's only going to accelerate. Spencer W. Kimball, then the president of the church, let's see, 1974, he may have been the president at that time, or at least he was probably in the first presidency at least. He said that we have many calamities in this past period. It seems that every day or two there is an earthquake or a flood or a tornado or distress that brings trouble to many people. I am grateful that our people and our leaders are beginning to catch the vision of their self-help. Now, I think the time is coming when there will be more distresses, when there may be more tornadoes and more floods, more earthquakes, and I think they will be increasing probably as we come nearer to the end. And so we must be prepared for this. And I love this quote, because talking about preparation isn't just talking about personal preparation, like food storage and things like that, but it's talking about you sitting in this classroom right now. Because when it comes down to it, with the information you're going to learn from this classroom, you are going to have knowledge and a responsibility to society, to use that knowledge and that information to protect society to the best of your ability from damage and harm resulting from earthquakes. And I feel like that is one of the most important forms of preparation that we can offer and use to serve humanity. Fortunately, as researchers like myself and other good friends, both in and outside of the church, we work hard. The Lord is pouring out His Spirit upon us, and we're learning more things every year. and it's just accelerating at almost an exponential rate, our knowledge. And so I love this scripture from the Doctrine and Covenants, where he talks about, he says, "Yea, verily I say unto you, that in that day when the Lord shall come, he shall reveal all things, things which have passed, and hidden things which no man knew, things of the earth, by which it was made, and the purpose and the end thereof, things most precious, things that are above, and things that are beneath, things that are in the earth, and upon the earth, and in heaven." I feel like we're getting a lot of information about what is in the earth, by which it was made, and information that's helping us be better engineers today. And so hopefully you'll learn some of this information in this class, and in such a way that you'll be able to apply it in your practice. So let's jump in and talk from a bird's eye view about the field of earthquake engineering. Usually earthquake engineering is lumped together with civil engineering, and when it began, that was probably appropriate. But today, earthquake engineering has really grown, and it's expanded to the point where it's almost become its own field, its own science. We generally recognize the field of earthquake engineering starting in the 1920s from earthquakes in Japan and the United States that caused people to rethink how they were doing things. And since that time, we've come a long way. Where we used to have just kind of one nebulous field called earthquake engineering, now it's expanded into lots of different subdisciplines and specializations since the 1930s. And these specializations and subdisciplines continue to subdivide and add more and more specializations, and really this is where we are today. So in this class, we're going to talk about a couple of things. We're going to talk certainly about geotechnical engineering. We're going to talk a bit about seismology, probably more about seismology than any other class I'm aware of here on BYU. We're going to talk just a smidgen about structural engineering, but the things that we'll learn in this class will have huge application to structural engineering. And this is the reason why Dr. Richards sends a lot of his research assistants over to this class, because the things they learn here will be helpful to them in their research. We won't talk too much about risk and loss estimation, though again, some of the things we'll learn are very important to this category, and we'll only briefly touch the idea of policy and implementation. And to be honest, this one here is the newest branch, I would say, or subdiscipline that's forming, because we're learning, no matter how good our technical knowledge is, if we can't apply it in a meaningful, practical, economical, and just way in society, then what's the point? And so hopefully these will continue to subdivide, and the field will just continue to grow. So I want to just introduce briefly a lot of the different types of seismic hazards that we're going to discuss and learn about in this class. Obviously, the first one is going to be ground shaking itself. Ground shaking is what we call the primary hazard from an earthquake, because it really is the catalyst or the initiator of all the other subsequent hazards that occur. And we found that a lot of different things affect ground shaking, and you're going to learn a lot about those different things in this course. But for instance, I just have an example here. So if you've ever been to the Bay Area and you've driven out on the Bay Bridge, you can see you're going to pass through an island. There's one island here. It's made of rock. It's called Yerba Buena Island. And then there's another island located right next to it that is a man-made island constructed of soil. And these two islands are right next to each other, and on both of these islands there are ground motion recording instruments. In 1989, when the Loma Prieta earthquake struck, that was the earthquake that happened during the World Series in October of 1989, both of these instruments recorded the earthquake. Now, it's interesting because the instruments were pretty much the exact same distance from the earthquake. But look at the difference between these two records. On the y-axis, we have acceleration. On the x-axis, we have time in the earthquake. Here is the Treasure Island is the soil, and Yerba Buena Island is the rock. Look at the differences in these time histories. And this is something that we attribute to a phenomenon that we'll learn about called site response. How different types of materials can amplify or de-amplify ground motions depending on their natural frequency. We're not going to really talk about this, but it's implied that ground motions lead to structural collapse. And structural collapse is definitely the deadliest hazard associated with an earthquake. I've been told by experts and friends of mine that earthquakes don't kill people, collapsing buildings do. And for the most part, I agree with that statement. So what it boils down to is, how do we make our structures more resilient to earthquake damage and more resistant to collapse or significant damage from an earthquake? We're not going to talk about those things in this class, but we're going to talk about the ground motions and some of the phenomenon associated with the soil and the foundation that could lead to a structural collapse. Now, I have a few YouTube video links down here. I'm not going to click on those links in this video because if I try to show a YouTube video in a YouTube video, YouTube will flag it and will remove it, saying I'm showing copyrighted material. But on Learning Suite, if you go under Content and then Completed Lectures, you'll see the PowerPoint for this presentation. Pull it up and you can go and look at all those different YouTube videos that show examples of these different types of hazards. Towards the end of the semester, we're going to talk about a hazard that's very near and dear to my heart, which is soil liquefaction. It's recognized as one of the most expensive hazards associated with earthquakes. It doesn't really kill people, but it does do the most amount of damage to infrastructure, which in turn can have the highest amount of losses and costs to society. And so it's very important that we understand liquefaction, that we have abilities to try to predict it, when it's going to occur, when it's not going to occur, and if it occurs, what types of effects can result from it. And so we're going to learn a lot about those different types of aspects from liquefaction. And again, I invite you to check out these different YouTube videos because there's some really kind of entertaining and freaky videos that show liquefaction in real life. Landslides and slope failures. Up until last year, this was kind of a abstract topic for me. I knew that landslides were triggered by earthquakes. I knew that slopes deformed and displaced, and that there were lots of failures on unstable slopes from earthquakes. But once I started going to Italy and seeing the results from the earthquake there and that mountainous terrain there, as well as Japan in last May, and we saw the slope failures that occurred in the Kumamoto region and in the caldera of the Aso volcano, it became a whole lot more real to me. And I'm telling you that landslides and slope failures are a very significant and important hazard. And it's important for geotechnical engineers to be able to predict when these landslides are going to occur, where they're going to occur, and how bad they might be, and what type of impacts they might have on infrastructure. And so this is a major research area for lots of engineers. We're going to learn a little bit about seismic slope stability towards the end of the semester. Retaining wall failures, it's another thing we saw a lot of in Italy. And seismic loads can add additional inertial forces, horizontal inertial forces to retaining walls, which can cause them to be damaged or even in the worst cases collapse, kind of like we see in this gravity wall that I'm circling here. Geotechnical and structural engineers need to be aware of the mechanics that are going on here and try to design and compensate for them whenever we design retaining walls. So again, towards the end of the semester, we're going to learn a little bit about Seismic lateral earth pressures. This is a topic that traditionally there's been a lot of confusion, frustration, and I would say inconsistencies in geotechnical engineering. But I think a lot of that confusion is starting to go away as some newer research performed by some colleagues out of Berkeley is really showing what's real and what's not. What's the boogeyman and what is something that we really do need to be concerned about. And so we'll learn a little bit more about those things. Lifeline hazards, I would say, are perhaps the most expensive hazard associated with earthquakes, and it's not always in terms of expenses associated with cost or money. Lifelines are the term that we use to describe roads, bridges, water lines, gas lines, electric lines, etc., etc. These are long linear or could be non-linear features that make society work, make society what it is. And so if you break it, how's that going to impact society? We've seen lots of devastating consequences. For instance, we saw the fire in 1906 in San Francisco. The earthquake and liquefaction in the city ruptured most of the water lines running throughout the city, and as a result the water lines lost their pressure and the firefighters weren't able to battle any of the fires that were just engulfing the entire city. And as a result, the firefighters and the citizens of the city had to just sit and watch their city burn. That was devastating. More recently, in 2010, there was a massive earthquake in Haiti, and this one is touching to me because these people were in no condition to recover from an earthquake in the first place, and what little they had, the earthquake took from them. And as a result of the loss of what clean water they had, a massive cholera epidemic broke out in 2010, and remnants of it are still remaining today, even in 2017. And it just goes to show this idea of resiliency. Resilience is how fast can we recover from earthquake damage. And so a place like Haiti is shown to be pretty low resilient, or have a low level of resiliency, because they're having a hard time bouncing back. Places like New Zealand, Christchurch, I went there a year ago in November of 2015, and so that was 4 years after their major series of earthquakes, and 40% of the city was still completely gone. Most of the residents of the city had left, and a lot of the city felt kind of like a ghost town. And so because of the damage to lifelines, it makes it difficult to recover. So when we talk about the idea of resilience, in many ways we're talking about how fast can we get our lifelines back up and running again. A final hazard that we're going to just touch upon in this class, but not really go into depth a whole lot, is that of tsunamis and seisures. There's a lot of misunderstandings and inaccurate perceptions out there with regards to tsunamis, and a lot of you probably don't even know what seisures are. A seiche is like the sloshing of water in a tub. So seiches usually happen in smaller closed bodies of water like lakes. A tsunami is a different mechanism, and we're going to talk a little bit about it. Not that these things have anything or much to do with geotechnical engineering, but I don't know where else here at BYU you're going to learn these topics. And if you practice anywhere near the coast where you have certain seismic sources like subduction zones, like the Cascadia subduction zone in Washington or Oregon or Northern California, you're going to want to be aware of some of these things. So again, I have some YouTube clips. I hope the clips still work because some of the clips are pretty graphic. They're going to show some video scenery from the 2004 tsunami that ravaged the Indian Ocean region from the earthquake that that occurred there. It was like a 9.0 earthquake, I believe. Um, and so, just so you have, you've been warned. Viewer discretion is advised on some of those videos because you're going to see some pretty heart-wrenching things. But that tsunami in 2004 opened our eyes in a sense, and a lot of advances in our understanding of tsunamis have occurred since that event. And certainly the media is all over tsunamis. Whenever you hear an earthquake, and regardless of the size and the magnitude of the earthquake, they always want to throw in the tsunami risk. And that's because of this one event that happened in 2004. So, with that being said, folks, I think that's the end of my slides. Again, I want to welcome you to this class. I'm glad that you'll be here. I'm going to get to know all of you by name, and though I know most of you already very well from your attending my 341 class. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to contact me. My phone number I'm on the list on Learning Suite. You can send me a text. You can call me. I should be able to get that. Email is a great way to get a hold of me, though I may not be able to respond right away. Or you can send me a message in Learning Suite. My office hours are going to be posted on Learning Suite. Feel free to come and see me. If you need help, I'm more than happy to assist you. If you feel like this class might not be a good idea for you, you're always free to come and speak with me. I'll be happy to do that. But again, I want to emphasize, this is not an easy class. And so if you feel like you're up to it and ready for a challenge, and I think it's going to be worthwhile and you'll enjoy it. Anyway, have a wonderful week, and look for Wednesday's video on the same YouTube channel, as we're going to talk a little bit about historical earthquakes. Thanks, guys.